And welcome to another episode of Patriots 4th and 2. I am your host today, Derek Havens, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Steve Balistrieri. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Patriots' loss to the Miami Dolphins 17-31 down in Miami. We're also going to be talking about some big news around the NFL, including some former Patriots coaches and personnel guys, the NFL trade deadline that came and went, as well as previewing the upcoming game versus the Washington Commanders. Before we start off, I want to make sure you all check out PatsFans.com with some great content over there, along with what Steve Balistrieri always goes ahead and puts up, which is always a great read. Also, please subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. It keeps us high on the podcast ranking so other Patriots fans can't find us. I want to dive right in because we have a ton to talk about. And I also am very, very excited that we're streaming on Facebook because I know last week we couldn't. We didn't get as many. We weren't able to get the group participation that we'd like to have on the show. So if we haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks, please go ahead and leave some comments. We'll try to get to as many as we can on the air. But enough of the rambling. Enough of the intro. Steve, how are we doing today?
Well, I'd be doing a lot better if they had won in Miami. But, the sun continues to rise every morning. It's not the end of the world. I know that.
The sky might be falling.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But
look, there's still 9 games to go. I'm not saying they're going to win 9 games, but they have some. I don't want to say winnable because that sounds like they're on a roll, but there's some games that they should be able to compete very well in the next few weeks, and we'll see what happens. But right now the injury bug has taken its toll on these guys, and that, to me, that's the big one. You and I have been pounding the table for more Kendrick Bourne since last season, and I thought he's been the best player all season on offense, and to lose him on Sunday just added injury to insult, I think.
Yeah, no, the Kendrick Bourne injury sucks on so many levels. And I think you heard it from Bill. I think you heard it from the players, how much energy he brings on the field, off the field, locker room. The practice field. I just think that it's a loss. And it's unfortunate because he was on a very good pace for the year, kind of rounding into form. Last year, it didn't make sense with his usage. It never did, and this year with his contributions, Pop Douglas kind of emerging into the offense, there wasn't a whole lot on the offensive side where you could be excited about, but you were happy with those two guys, and to lose such a big chunk of that is such an unfortunate thing. I guess the only silver lining, would be that it happened at this point in the year, not towards the end of the year, where he should be able to get back into the swing of things right around training camp and hopefully be good to go next year. But he's in a contract year, so who knows if he's going to be back or not. And I feel for him on that level too, because, it's not like he was a super high draft pick. I mean, he's here. He was on pace to probably cash in, not like big, but, get a good 3-4 year contract. And I still hope the team rewards him for that. At the very least, I do think he'll be back. But we'll see. Time will tell. Chris writes in, he says, "Hello, Derek and Steve. Well, with this loss, what should the plan be for the rest of the season?" And, I just think, Chris, for me, this brings up something that I brought up yesterday, Steve, on Twitter, which was, I feel like sometimes people misconstrue the word tanking. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of times with tanking, people look at it as like the players or the coaches are trying to purposefully lose. I promise you that that's not the case. But it often comes from above that, from the personnel, from the GM, from the front office, where, they're trying to, have guys maybe that are unproven or younger get bigger roles and opportunities where you have some of these veterans, kind of step back. And I just think that that's what they need to do with this team. They need to have some of these young guys step up. Steve, we do have someone here visiting with us. Look who popped on in. Your 30-minute show wasn't enough. You had to come out and vent a little bit more. I want to hear it. Claire, what's going on?
She said she drank too much coffee this morning.
I did.
Oh boy, I'm just starting. It's only 9 for me, but first cup of the day.
Yeah, look at the size of my cup today.
I don't know. I don't want to count how many I'm on today, actually, because I was up early doing my show this morning. So yeah, but I was your opening act. So Steve said that I should come on and just
please do.
Say hello.
Let me ask you, Claire. What? I didn't listen. I wasn't able to listen. I will listen to your guys' show that we'll post later. For those who are joining us. Where do you think the team is right now? What do you feel? I don't know what was your give me a short synopsis of your recap of where you think the team is from yours and Steve's discussion prior to the show.
Well, generally not necessarily sort of like a recap of the show, but to ask me the question, I still feel like I'm looking at the team. What we're seeing isn't quite the team that I feel that they really are. Their performance doesn't feel it's the true team that we're seeing. I mean, I'm not saying that. Why do you feel
that way? Just out of this isn't me bragging on you or anything. I'm just honestly curious why you feel that way, because I think at some point you have to declare yourself, right? Like Bill Parcells. What was it, Steve? It was always it took 6 games, 8 games, or whatever it was. I mean, we're now 8 games into the season. So I'm with you, Claire. I honestly don't think this is the team that's representative of what I feel like they can be. But at some point, don't we have to sit here and say, it's been 2 months? I mean, maybe it is the team. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Part of me is a little bit of a Mac apologist because I feel like the last few years we aren't seeing. I don't believe that Mac Jones that's on the field is the real true Mac Jones that would be if he hadn't have gone through those few years personally. Now that's kind of it is what it is because he is this now, and I fully appreciate that. But that feels an element of unfair. I believe that some of the weapons that they've had, as people like to say, haven't been utilized to the best of their ability, as one of my favorite tight ends used to say. So yeah, it just feels like there is more there, and the Bills game highlights that for me because Mac seemed to have a bit of his swagger back. He seemed to have some of his confidence. They utilized the players a little bit more. It just feels like there is that bit more there. Maybe it's just a naivety and I'm just not ready to give up yet. Maybe it's just something like that. It's as we mentioned previously, there's still 9 games left. It still feels like there's this chance of they can pull it back together, but unfortunately, I don't know if you mentioned it, but the Bourne injury doesn't help that. He was one of those key players that was going to bring them to success, and that's what it feels like from watching the Bills game. He's one of the top pass catchers, one of the top weapons, as people like to say, that they've got. So to lose him now feels like, okay, you're starting to lose that much that you're really going to struggle to be successful regardless, kind of thing.
Well, I think that we all thought the team would take a step forward after last year, and it just was a clunkier start than I think we were all anticipating. Steve mentioned a little while ago, now you got the injury bug that's popped up with the team, which is significant, which I honestly feel like is affecting a lot of teams. There seems to be some severe injuries across the league. I mean, we lost another, meaning the NFL community, lost another starting quarterback with the Kirk Cousins, Achilles tear, which was unfortunate. But, it just, I don't know. I mean, I'm torn on the team, Claire, because I think Steve was a little higher on them going to the year than I was. I still felt like their defense would pull through, and I thought the offense would be better. The offense hasn't gotten better because something that we were worried about all offseason, which was the offensive line, has really reared its ugly head. Defensively, you've had some significant injuries that's really affected that. Mac Jones just seems just off to me. And I think to your point, going back to the Bills game 2 weeks ago, it gives you a little optimism, it gives you a little hope because, he was able to kind of put it together a little bit. He just looked so much more confident. He was really driving the ball. His feet looked good versus versus this Dolphins game last week where he had that late lazy throw where he didn't drive to the opposite field and Jalen Ramsey baited him and picked it off. It's just you can't fall into these mistakes, and he's falling into seemingly the same mistakes continuously, which is one of the biggest issues coming from this game. I mean, let's get back to the Dolphins game, Steve. I mean, give me your opening thoughts on the Dolphins game, what was your, give me your takeaways from the game.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that, right? They got off to a good start. They got a turnover on defense. Mac throws a 24-yard touchdown to Kendrick Bourne, and you're thinking, okay, what we saw last week, maybe it's going to carry over into this game. Not saying that they were going to, undoubtedly win the game, because we all know in Miami strange things happen to the Patriots. But at the same time, you had that feeling, okay, maybe what we saw last week is this team. And they just fell right back into that same, defensively, they weren't able to jam Miami's receivers at the line. And I know they wanted to play zone, but at the same time, you can't jam them in zone, and they ate them up underneath. So, that was, they couldn't stop Tua. I mean, they did a couple of times. They were getting pressure on him. But at the same time, I thought in the second half, the defense wilted a little bit in the heat, which we've seen happen numerous times in Miami, even in December, because it's still warm down here. But
you love it. He puts that in. It's still warm down here. He likes to get that in.
I didn't even realize I said
near
it.
the pool. It's nice down here near the pool.
Yeah. Yes, next to the pool. Next to the pool. If you see that light shining in the window, that's the lights shining off the pool. So it's still pool weather. But offensively, then it just, the mistakes, the play on the offensive line, they just weren't able to get anything going. The offense didn't gel at all. And you have to give Miami's defense credit. I mean, they have a very good secondary now because they got a lot of their guys back. But at the same time, I still thought there was plays out there that they missed. And, and like Derek said earlier, they keep making the same mistakes,
Yeah.
And the officials didn't lose them the game, but the
officiating was horrendous. I mean, on so many
levels. I mean, they sure didn't help the cause much.
And the frustrating thing about the game too, Steve, was the Patriots are driving a little before the half's over, and then Mac has that pick, and the Dolphins were able to go down and they got the field goal, right? That drive. So instead of the Patriots potentially scoring a touchdown or getting a field goal, then you swing it the other way with momentum and you get the field goal. Then you go in half, and then the Dolphins are getting the ball back, and you're like, geez, that's a frustrating way to the game to end. Then you get first play from scrimmage, exactly what you needed to happen. Get the turnover. And that's pretty much the end of the competitive portion of the game. And that was then it was just all Miami, just kicked it into gear. And there were so many things that we talked about last week, Steve, that they were just not able to do from the Patriots standpoint. And again, it's the mistakes to me that is an issue. I think Mac's holding on to the ball too long. I think the offensive line isn't doing him a whole lot of favors, although I think some of those things go hand in hand. I don't think the offensive line is playing well. I also think that both things can be true where the offensive line isn't playing well and Mac is either feeling pressure prematurely or he's speeding himself up a little bit, like that Trent Brown play that was going around where people thought he gave up. I think he kind of looked around and was like, you still have the ball in your hands? Like, it just seemed like last week he was on more of a schedule with the or it's like, how do you say it, Claire? Schedule? Like, how do you? It's more of a schedule. You versus the Bills, he was more on time. It was kind of like 1, 2, 3, bang, ball out. This week, it was like kind of like patting the baby, and then bam, pressure in his face. And I just, there's so the thing with the Patriots, too, is that you have to have everything go right for them. And that comes to something that I was talking to Steve about that I want to try out, which is this new segment called One Big Thing. Okay. It's the one big thing, which is the new segment every week is we're going to be talking about the game, but I want to get down to one succinct thing that is our takeaway from the game. So my one big thing from this Patriots game is that the margin for the Patriots is razor thin with this team. They just have to have everything go right. They don't have the talent on the outside to win one-on-one matchups and get separation consistently. The protection has to be perfect, and both of those things have to go hand in hand in order for Mac to succeed. They're having issues. I mean, even running the ball, they're struggling. It's like everything just has to go perfectly. Steve, I know I just talked to you about this 30 minutes prior to the show starting. And Claire, I know you're just joining us, but if you want to boil something down to one big thing, if you don't want to pass, it's fine.
I have a thing.
Okay. Well, ladies first then. Tell me your one big thing from the Patriots Dolphins game. What's your one big takeaway from this game?
If the Patriots can keep up the momentum, they can be much more successful. Because they seem to, when they started building, it came after the Duggar interception. The defense played really well. Duggar had the interception. The defense had some good plays. Obviously, then that gave the ball back to Mac. And then there was something, and then all my notes if in front of me. And then it was basically it concluded with the Bourne touchdown. But it just seemed like they'd got this momentum, and you were watching, and it was the end of the first quarter, and you're like, okay, the defense was on it, and then the offense was on it, and then it just seemed to like stutter and stuff. It's like they've run out of fuel really quickly.
Well, it's funny to your point. When they play complementary football, they feed off each other quite a bit, right? But it also seems like they go the other way too, where it's like when one phase of the game is struggling, then they also go backwards. It's like I totally get that. So you're talking about momentum in the individual game, like just kind of like in each individual game as a vacuum. You mean like just kind of stringing things together correctly?
Yeah, once they, it just seemed like when you were watching that, once they could start to see where their strengths were, they become successful, play the way that they're good at playing and keep it moving and keep it going. And sort of there was also when Mac has to sort of hurry up a little bit more, like, less huddle, that kind of thing. When they get some of that going, it looked like that they were revving up and then it just dropped off. And it's just like they need to keep that maintenance of that rolling, of that going. And I think some of that maybe comes back to coaching or confidence is, it's another really big thing when it comes to sort of continuing with this that to be successful. But it just feels like when you see those pockets, like at the end of the first week, you see that and it's like, look, that's what they can do, that they can be this. Carry on, don't stop.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I do. And I think that oftentimes, I think good teams learn from mistakes and are able to kind of create that momentum. And I think bad teams kind of fall into those cyclical cycles of and repeat mistakes. And I think that's where that margin is for the Patriots right now. I think that's why it's a frustrating thing, Claire, for not just you, but for a lot of people, because you see flashes. Like you see flashes and you're just like, this is what it can look like. And then they fall back into their old ways. It's just such a Jekyll and Hyde thing. And they just can't seem to get out of their own way sometimes. Steve, give me your one big thing from the Patriots Dolphins this week.
Yeah, I watched the game back, and don't ask me why. And for the first time, I thought I saw a little desperation in the defense because, I know they had some pressure on Tua in the first half, but it seemed like as the game wore on, they felt like they had to really step it up. And I saw them making like basic mistakes that Belichick preaches. And I'm talking about the defensive linemen. And they, in their rush lanes, they were so, trying so hard to get to Tua that they were rushing past him. And Belichick, that's one of his mantras, right? He preaches, don't ever go behind the quarterback because then he's just going to step up and run. And I saw that multiple times on Sunday, and I think that was the defense just feeling like, hey, we have to make a play or, we're going to be stuck here. And when they made it a one-score game, you're thinking, okay, if the defense can step up just one more time and stop them, they have a chance to at least tie the game up. and not saying that they were going to win, but it's in doubt, right? So then when that happened, the Dolphins moved right down the field. So
yeah, no, I agree. So all right, good opening. I like that.
So I say off with their heads.
I have one little thing.
Just pull out an axe.
I don't.
I always keep it next to me during the podcast.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
He could kill you with a teaspoon, though. He doesn't need an axe, does he? He could
like the Chronicles of Riddick, where he's like, he puts the teacup down. He's like, "I'll kill you with this teacup." Claire, what's the other thing you wanted to bring up?
I have one small thing to add to my big thing, and then I will leave you guys to your show, because I don't want to gate crash for too long. So I will, leave the fans to the guys' show, because I know obviously they want plenty of you, because that's what they're tuning. My little thing is the utilization of more tight endage. Because Farrah Brown was very good, as me and Steve talked about on the little intro show or your warm up act, and they need to use Gesicki more. They need to get Gesicki more. Not just my sandwich bet, but they need to get Gesicki more.
I think I'm surprised about Gesicki's production about as much as anybody. I mean, I thought he was going to have. I say a lot of dumb things. I'm pretty sure I had him for like 10 touchdowns before the season started. I thought he was going to be just an absolute stud in this Bill O'Brien offense, and I think he had one catch this last week, and honestly, Pharaoh Brown has turned into like this
weapon.
Sneaky, like I don't think I think it's one of those things where, like, the more you use them, like the less, like, the kind of polish wears off. But if you just keep doing exactly what he's doing, he'll just randomly make like these big, like 25, 26 yard plays. And I have no idea where it comes from. I really don't. But I mean, I don't care. He's been a nice addition.
I really think that they use him as a blocker, right? And teams, see him out there. Okay, he's going to stay in and block. He's going to stay in and block, and then he leaks out, and he surprises the safety, and it's like, this guy's just going out, and he beats him down the numbers or down the seam, and he hauls in a 20, plus yardage catch. So. Yeah, I think it's awesome. Good for him. I think it's, it's really neat to see. And, I do want to see more Gesicki. They haven't utilized him enough.
How can you not want to see more Gesicki? I mean, come on.
Claire, are you going to stick around? We're going to head.
I will leave you to it, because you've got your nice segments and stuff, and I really hate gate crashing for too much. But I couldn't miss the opportunity just to come on, and so I'm sorry, Derek. I just love coming on and annoying you. Really,
don't apologize. Like I said, you're welcome to stay the rest of the show. I just want to move on. So if you,
I will leave you be.
Okay.
I will leave you be to your show, and hopefully I can pop in another time soon, because it is always so much fun talking to you guys. So take care. See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Miss Moneypenny.
All right, we got classy Claire Cooper, who did we got back-to-back weeks, Steve, of surprise guests. I'm just waiting for who's gonna drop in next. But yeah, we got everyone be sure to check out the Claire Perspective podcast. Claire does a really good job. Gets a lot of really nice guests. And she always has that infectious laugh. And I think we could all use a little smile after this week, because it is dark days over Gillette. But Steve, enough of the Dolphins game. I think final thoughts for me on the Dolphins game, honestly, is just that the talent disparity is pretty large between these two teams. I still have a lot of questions. About Miami I have a lot of questions about Miami going the distance, because I just don't know if they can play the style they want to play in 3-4 consecutive games to win it all in the postseason. I just think it's going to get more physical for them. They are more of a finesse team. I don't mean that really in a bad way. And as far as the modern game goes, Mike McDaniel's awesome. Although I think some of those motions might need to be looked at a little farther, but aside, that's a story for another day. I really don't want to get bogged down in the officials, okay? Because I know people have been asking about it. I thought we already said it. The officiating sucked. I did think some of that stuff was BS, but honestly, if they're not going to call it, then that's not on the Dolphins. That's on the officials. So it is what it is. I mean, that's something that I feel like needs to be addressed because it was very CFL-ish. But regardless, I do think that the Dolphins are really going in the right direction. I really like McDaniel. He's a funny dude. And his schemes are excellent, and there's a lot of good things for them. My Miami take from a distance, Steve, is that I brought up what Chris Long said about things needing to go smoothly for them, like an F1 car last week. And I see it with them. It's like when they can get going, man, they can be explosive and score in a hurry. I do wonder when they face the teams that are going to be more physical, if they get into some weather games. I'll be curious if they can hang at that point, because that's when they'll really win me over. Because I'm still wondering about that element for them.
Yeah, and Miami's team speed is. I mean, I'll never root for the Dolphins. Being a Patriots fan, I haven't for almost 60 years, so I'm not going to start now. But if in a neutral type of game, that offense is fun to watch when it's clicking.
Very much so. I totally agree.
Because they can turn a 2-yard pass into a 70-yard pass quite easily. And, the Patriots had some breakdowns, as we saw, but at the same time, they have a lot of team speed. The one thing you have to do is, you have to punch them in the mouth at the line of scrimmage, I think, on both sides. We saw Philadelphia do that. And you have to jam those wide receivers at the line. You might give up a big play, but I think that, that's the way you're going to have to play them. Much in the way the Patriots would play Kansas City, when Brady was still here. So
yeah, no, I totally agree.
But if you don't do those two things, that team can light it up really quickly, as we saw. So, I think they're a really good team, but I'm not completely sold on them because I still think there's ways to beat them, and I still worry about if I was a Dolphins fan, I would worry about the quarterback's health.
Yeah, no, I think those are the big things for them for sure. Let's take a quick break here, step aside for podcast purposes. And then when we get back, we have to talk about the NFL trade deadline that came and went yesterday. We got to talk about the news out of Las Vegas that broke in the middle of the night last night, and to talk about the upcoming game from the Patriots hosting the Washington Commanders. We will be back right after this. And we are back here on Patriots 4th and 2. Again, Derek Haven, Steve Balichieri here, both PatsFans.com bloggers. I want to take a second to thank Claire Cooper for joining us, dropping in, making a guest appearance. She also did a little mid-season recap. Steve, I guess is the best way to phrase that with Steve. The two of you did a show that we'll be posting later in the day.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure that'll get posted up, but. Yeah, it's great to see Claire. We haven't talked to her except online back and forth for a little bit. So her and I have been talking about doing a mid season like report card, basically, since week 1, because we missed doing it together. So it was fun to have her there, and I'm sure we'll see her again because she loves to needle you.
That's okay. I need to be needled every once in a while. I'm pretty sure Russ might have paid her to do that. But no, she doesn't needle me. She does. I enjoy Claire very much so.
Yeah. Same here.
But anyway, so let's move on because there is a lot to talk about. Okay. Do you want to start with the trade deadline or the Las Vegas news first?
Let's start with Las Vegas.
Okay, because we're a Patriots show, and there's a Patriots connection here, so I think there's a lot of lines to be crossed here. So we are recording this on November 1st. Really can't believe it's already November. Sorry for another day. Halloween night. It was spooky, Steve. It was spooky out in Vegas because about 10 o'clock Nevada time, Mark Davis decided to fire Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, and pretty much cleaned house for the Raiders. McDaniels was signed a 6-year deal and survived 25 games. Dave Ziegler also left as the GM. Now he's out. It looked like former Giants linebacker Antonio Pierce is going to be the interim coach. And there's a couple other moves. I know Mick Lombardi got fired as the offensive coordinator. Seemed like several other transactions were made. It's incredible how McDaniels is so good as a coordinator, but just flamed out again as a coach so quickly. Didn't even survive his second season, which he's the only coach in NFL history to be fired by two separate teams in under 2 seasons, which is not the record you want to hold. And I think a lot of people still hold the whole drama with the Indianapolis Colts against him. So, Steve, I think it's honestly fair that we might have seen the last Josh McDaniels head coach experiment at the professional level anyway.
Yeah.
I do think he will get another opportunity to be a coordinator. I think he has shown that he can be a good offensive coordinator in this league. But man, I don't know what else to say. Just really surprised. Another Belichick assistant that has not panned out. And Dave Ziegler too, who Matt Groh took over kind of where Dave Ziegler, left off last year. I think he could get another opportunity. I'm sure he'll start at a lower level again in the front office, but I think he could get another opportunity down the line. But man, both of those, kind of cleaning house for the Raiders, didn't really see that coming. I mean, I did. Some people were like, wow, because my comment was wow. And some people were like, what do you mean, wow? I'm like, because it's still only been 25 games and it's middle of it. It was middle of the night, halfway through the second year. I mean, they've already decided that they're benching Jimmy Garoppolo and going with rookie Aiden O'Connell. I mean, they're making some big wholesale changes at this point. It just caught me off guard a little bit, the timing of it all and everything.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder what was going on behind the scenes.
I agree.
In the last 2 days over in Las Vegas. I mean, for them to announce it at 10 o'clock at night, they must have had a meeting sometime earlier in that evening, and Mark Davis did not like what he was hearing.
I agree.
And I mean, he jettisoned your GM and your head coach mid-season, which like you said, you very rarely see that happening. I thought he was going to get axed after the season, but apparently Mark Davis made the call. And McDaniels he's not a good offensive coordinator. I think he's a great offensive coordinator, but he's just one of those guys that great coordinator, not a good head coach. We've seen it with Romeo Crennel, others, I agree with you. I don't think he'll get another head coaching job in the NFL. I think
I don't think he will. And this ties into, Steve, what has become the Patriots twist is instantly we get, fans, or people on Twitter talking about, can they return to the Patriots now? To me, this makes no sense on any level. For one, let's start with each one of them separately. For Dave Ziegler, I would say, you've already promoted Matt Groh. Unless you bring Ziegler back, he used to be Matt Groh's boss. So even if you bring him in as a consultant, I think that creates a weird dynamic because now it's like, okay, Ziegler out, Matt Groh elevated. Now you're going to bring Ziegler back as a consultant. There's always going to be that weird thing where you used to be the boss, and I'm good. Like I just think that just creates a messy situation. Flip it to McDaniels. Okay. Yeah. Well, actually, go ahead and share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, about Ziegler. I mean, yeah, right. You promoted Matt Groh. He's been on the job, for a very short amount of time, right? And you have to, unless you're going to clean house at the end of the season, which could happen, they might end up firing Belichick and Matt Groh and going total different direction, right? I mean, that's possible given the start of this year. But unless you're going to do that, you don't want to bring back Ziegler because then you're creating this, like you said, interesting and uncomfortable dynamic in the front office because now he's looking over his shoulder at a guy that left, and now you're bringing him back. So, it's sending mixed messages to this guy. So, am I being promoted, or is this guy coming back to take my job? And I don't think you do that. But, now you can go on to McDaniels because I think this is even more crazy.
I agree. The McDaniel situation is, again, I agree with you. It is more crazy. You handed the operation over to Bill O'Brien. It is now Bill O'Brien's offense. Bill O'Brien and Josh McDaniels, they ran a lot of similar stuff and verbiage because of their time with the Patriots in the past with Brady, because it was really just Brady's offense. And they both did different things, but there was some I'll call it cross contamination or whatever, like however you want to phrase that. But they are two different operations. And Bill O'Brien came to the Patriots to be the offensive coordinator for this team. You bring McDaniels as a consultant, and I really don't understand what he could bring to the table unless you wanted to bring him in simply as like a quarterback consultant. And even then, I just think that the dynamic, again, is just muddying the water. Like if you want to say, well, McDaniels was so good with Mac Jones, maybe we just bring him in as a quarterback coach or a quarterback consultant. I guess you could probably talk me into something like that. I just don't really see where the benefit is. And I think, again, you're muddying the water. You're going backwards. I don't know what it is about people that want to just keep bringing back these retread assistants, and maybe the people are worried to let go. And I don't like to be sitting and like talking down like I'm on some like high horse here. I just look at it and say, look, what have the Patriots done really well the last 4 years, 5 years? I mean, going back to even Brady's year, at some point you got to turn the page, okay? And I understand that Bill's still here and probably will still be here after the season. So it's still his quote unquote guys. I'm sorry. I'm looking at it from my own perspective. My perspective is I want new blood in here, new eyes, new perspectives. We don't need the same guys that burn out with the New York Giants after a season and a half, or burn out with the Las Vegas Raiders or whatever. I think you got to turn the page and move forward, Steve. Honestly, the only thing, if the Patriots do go ahead and hire Gerard Mayo as the next head coach, and we've been talking about how defensive coaches get their offensive coordinators poached all the time. Maybe if he hires McDaniels, they won't have to worry about it anymore because he's not going to be a head coach again. So I mean, maybe you go that route. But to me, it's like I'm kind of kidding, but at the same time, Steve, I just want the team to move forward in a different direction. And I just think bringing these guys back, for one, I just think it looks kind of stupid because it kind of makes the organization look weird, because it's like a running joke now that everyone kind of comes back to build. You really want to have that, like feeding that narrative and feeding that cyclical thing. And for two, I just think it muddies the water with the guys you put in place to replace them. I just think the time has passed for that.
Yeah. And the other thing is, hopefully they hold on to Bill O'Brien, because if you don't, and then it'll be the fourth offensive coordinator in 4 seasons for Mac Jones. And I'm here to tell you that is not a good recipe for success. I know everyone is on the Mac Jones side. They want him gone. They want the team to draft a new quarterback. I know a lot of people wanted to see him traded to the Vikings yesterday. And I was like, that's not going to happen. Bill isn't going to tank on the season. He's not. He's going to continue to try to win. And, but anyway, I just think bringing back McDaniels is a bad idea. Unless, we'll see what happens in the offseason. Maybe Bill O'Brien get a head coaching job someplace.
Yeah, although, I mean, maybe.
With the way the offense is playing right now, I honestly don't see that happening. Not that I'm putting it all on his head, because the talent level that they have on the team, the injuries that they've suffered, you can't put this all on Bill O'Brien. So that would be the only way I would welcome McDaniels back.
Yeah, and honestly, I just wonder too, what I don't know. Let's table this until the offseason, because honestly, like if you're telling me that Bill's coming back for one more year, okay, or 2 more years after this year, and Bill O'Brien does take another job, and Bill is like, look, Josh, just come back and we're going to build the team up around Mac and see if we can fix him. And when I'm done, hopefully the team will be in a better spot, and maybe the new coach will pick out a different quarterback or whatever, and the team will be better around him. I don't know. I just don't like that idea. I honestly would rather just start totally fresh. I just have a feeling that, and maybe this is just a personal issue with me. I feel like I just have to accept as a fan that I'm not going to get the quote unquote fresh start I'm looking for until Bill is gone. And I'm not pushing him out the door. I just look at, I guess my bigger point is something that I already said, which is just like, you've continued to kind of recycle the same kind of names, the same kind of guys, the same kind of stuff. And my question to people would be, without Brady being really locked in Brady, so this is his last year here, plus the Cam year and 3 years of Mac. You're going on 5 years now where this team has been middle of the road at best, and you seem to be going in a downward trajectory. I just don't see what the benefit is of trying to hold this thing together with glue and Scotch tape. I want to turn the page. But speaking of turning the page, Steve, yesterday was the NFL trade deadline. The Patriots decided to do nothing. There was a lot of talk about Josh Uche. The report I read today out of Jacksonville was that the Jaguars and the Patriots were haggling back and forth about Uche's compensation. The Jaguars were offering a 5th-round pick for Josh Uche. The Patriots wanted a 4th-round pick. I even surprised that they were going, as low. I think that if Uche had a better years to this point, they might have been able to get something higher than that. The fact that they stood pat, does that bother you, upset you? Thoughts on the Uche situation? Are you surprised they didn't or did make a move? What are your thoughts?
I'm not surprised they didn't make a move, because I knew they weren't going to get what they really wanted in a trade for Uche. And I know a lot of people got excited when they seen Montez
Sweat,
yeah, get traded for a 2nd-round pick. But if you look at the players, there's no way they were going to get a 2nd-round pick for Uche. I mean, he's not a 3-down player. He's a sub-package pass rusher, because he still can't set the edge in the running game. And he's light for outside linebacker in the style that the Patriots play. Sweat is like 265. He's big. He's like 6'5" or 6'6". And his production has been, high his career. Uche had that one big year last year. And, we were all excited thinking that, okay, maybe, the light has come on for him and we'll see what he can do this year. But he hasn't answered the bell. I mean, I know he's been banged up, but, with Matthew Judon out, that was his time to step up. If he played really well while Judon was out, then I think his market would have gone up quite a bit, because he's in a contract year. But I knew they weren't going to get anything close to a 2nd-rounder with him. I figured they might be able to fleece someone for a 3rd or a 4th, but that was about it, because I don't think they were going to get that yesterday.
And to your point, though, too, because I've had this question a lot asked to me yesterday. Why not just hold them for the year and get a comp pick? Well, the comp pick only works if the team doesn't spend any money in free agency, assuming they're going to go out and spend money in free agency, which, by the way, they need to, because they have a ton of guys up and you have $100 million in cap space. They better be out spending money, or we're going to have a different conversation about ownership and what the hell's going on here. But so if you're out spending money in free agency, you're not going to get the comp pick for Uche. It would be more like what happened last year, where they really didn't spend money, and then if Uche goes out in Atlanta or Jacksonville or somebody like that gave him a 5-year, $85 million contract with $70 million guaranteed, you'd be like, okay, yeah, the Patriots aren't going to match that. I fully expect Uche to not be one of the guys they resign. I do think that there needs to be a situation where they identify the young core of this team and who the heck they're going to build around. Like, to me, I would sign like Mike Onwenu. I would sign Kyle Duggar. Like, these are guys that you should sign. Steve, do you know the last Patriot player who was drafted in the first, second, or third round that they gave a contract to?
Yeah, it was 2013.
13.
Deron Harmon, right?
Yes. And the one before that was Donta Hightower in 2012.
Yeah.
The Patriots, and to me, that is a huge, another offseason topic. That is a huge, huge slam against the team, because for one, that either means the guys you drafted suck, or you didn't deem them valuable enough to keep around. I think they regret the Tooney situation. I think there's a couple of guys that they let go that they probably wish they hadn't in retrospect, but hindsight is 2020. But to me, it's a huge, huge slam on the team that they need to figure out a way to, retain some of their own guys. They have to go ahead. In order to get out of the hole that they're in, they need to identify a young core, keep them, build a new culture, draft, good young players, and then make some good veteran additions. They've made good veteran additions. They've brought in guys like Matt Judon, Adrian Phillips at one point. Kendrick Bourne has been a good addition. I think Zeke has been a good addition for the team this year. Yeah. I think I look at Jabril Peppers. There's guys they've identified guys. Their issue is seldomly an issue with pro scouting. It's the college scouting where they've had some bigger issues. But you can do both. You can identify your young core and guys you drafted like Duggar and Onwenu, etc. And then you can also identify guys that you want to build a culture around who have kind of come in and done what you want, like a Kendrick Bourne, like a Jabril Peppers. You can do those things hand in hand. And that's what they really need to do. I know I kind of went on a tirade there, but to me,
that's all right, because I'm in total lockstep with you. The part that's crazy to me is they seem to have zero urgency of bringing back Duggar. And it just blows me away, because why would you not want to bring back this guy? He's a playmaker. He's, whenever
the best thing that they could do is either draft or sign a true free safety for next year. Okay. Re-sign Duggar and re-sign Peppers, and let Duggar and Peppers interchange them, strong safety in the box, whatever, have both of them on the field because they're both good players, and let somebody else play the deep middle, because neither one of them are really built for that. They're better closer to the line of scrimmage, closer to the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. And so
and they're in sub packages so much anyway that, it shouldn't be an issue for them.
No, and to me, that's it's a conversation for another day. But we're going to have to talk about where that is identifying that young core, and the reason I'm intertwining the trade deadline in this is because I think that they didn't really look at selling, because there wasn't a whole lot that they could sell and get what they would qualify as. Yeah, we could get a 5th round pick, but we'd rather have Uche and just have him with the team. They've already lost Judon. So they don't want to lose too many guys, and they don't want to put too much on Keon White, although I think he's flashed at certain points. Man, I'll tell you, when he flashes, it's solid. So there's a lot of good things, but you still have to get your bang for your buck. You don't want to just have a fire sale just for the sake of having a fire sale. And I think that they probably looked around at kicking the tires on a couple things, like Chase Young, for example, and they were like, maybe we don't think it's worth giving him the compensation if they don't think they can give him a long-term extension. Again, conversation for another day, but we will get back to that over the offseason, because it is a good topic, and it's something that I know people don't want to hear this, but when you're 2-6 midway through the year and you have half the season left, we're going to be talking about who's playing, who's playing, why some people are playing, some people aren't, who's got an eye towards the future. Receiver's a perfect example of this. With Devontae Parker likely out this week, Steve, Juju Smith-Schuster's kind of taking the back seat. I mean, to me, you're not talking about quote-unquote tanking, but as we go to our preview for the Washington Commanders, the receivers are going to be in question this week. I don't see why you don't have Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, Tyquan Thornton, Jalen Reagor. Like, you need to be playing some of these younger guys and see what you have.
Bourne's on IR now, but
that's what I'm saying. You got Douglas,
Boutte,
Douglas Boutte,
Thornton
and Rager, and then obviously Juju. And I know Parker's with Parker out this year, so those are gonna be your 5 guys. It's like I want to see more of these younger guys and just see. I mean, Tyquan Thornton is a healthy scratch in his second year as a second-round pick. Hurts bad. I mean, this goes back to one of those misses. And look, we talked about this live when he was drafted, Steve. There was George Pickens, Alec Pierce, Sky Moore, Tyquan Thornton, all drafted in a cluster together. George Pickens has shown that he can be a good player. Now, to be fair to them, I think that there was a lot of hesitancy from a lot of teams to draft him for reasons that we just can't really understand because we weren't, doing the due diligence. Tyquan Thornton doesn't look any worse than Alec Pierce or Sky Moore. They both look, all 3 of them look like they're, not great, but Tyquan Thornton is at least Sky Moore is playing. He's dropping balls in the end zone, but he's on the field. Tyquan Thornton, I want to see at least on the field. Like, I would rather the team fail with Tyquan Thornton on the field and just see what he can do than just keep him as a healthy scratch at this point. You have to see what you have in him, or you have to be ready to move on. And I know that we're getting ready to preview the Commanders here in a second, but as we preview the game, the offense with all the injuries they've had, with the injury to Bourne, with Devontae Parker hurt, the receivers to me are a big question going into this week because somehow Sam Howell is getting sacked. He's on pace to break David Carr's record, and he still put 30 points on the board 3 different times this season. So the Patriots are going to have to score. So what's going to happen, Steve, with this receiving corps for the Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that because, Belichick said last week, well, in relation to Butte's lack of playing time, well, he's got the guys in front of him. Well, the guys in front of him are banged up now. So he's got some speed. Let's see what he can do against and we'll get into it, a really poor secondary. Same with Thornton. At this stage of the season, it's time to see what you have. And you have these young guys. See if there's anything worth keeping these guys around for, and then you can make your decisions when the season's over. But you just can't, you play a guy week 1 and, he doesn't get his foot down and that's it for him for the rest of the season. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous, So let's get into the Commanders.
All right, the Commanders. For one, tying into the trade deadline, Steve, you now have 2 less things to worry about on that front.
Ooh.
Talk about great timing. Thank you. Thank you, Washington. We appreciate it because if I have to see Josh Sweat and Chase Young taking turns dunking on Mac Jones during this game, it would have made the Sunday a lot worse. Now, you still have Jonathan Allen. You still have some good players on that team. I don't think this team is completely lost. I don't think they're a good team, but they still have some things going on for them. Offensively, you got Terry McLaurin. You got Jahan Dotson. You have some good players in the running backfield. You have a quarterback in Sam Howell that I don't think can be a franchise guy, but I think he's borderline. I think as the Barstool guys would say, he's frisky and fun. Okay. So, and I'm not a big Barstool guy, but they do the power rankings every week, and the fun and frisky category always gets me. And that's what Sam Howell is. Okay. He kind of has some Taylor Heineke-ish qualities. They're both kind of Fitzpatrick-esque, new age. So I think that Howell can be interesting. Do I think the Patriots will get after Howell this week, Steve? Yes, I do. Do I think he'll make a couple mistakes? I do. But I think he's done that in all these games, and they still managed to put up some points. So from the defensive perspective, you're going to have to go ahead and, get to him and try to create some turnovers. But offensively, you have to figure out a way to, score points. And, Steve, going back to last week against the Dolphins, before the Dolphins game, we talked about this, and I was talking about it wasn't really for me about starting fast versus the Dolphins. It was about trying to keep pace. And I thought they did that until the Mac Jones interception, and then the wheels kind of fell off. And offensively, they have to get out of this, situation where they stall constantly. They have to figure out a way to, generate some plays and kind of get some, as Claire talked about, gaining some momentum, because the Commanders, I think, can put up some points in this game. And if Patriots are lucky, I think they get caught with their pants down at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Washington's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team because I think their defense is bad, but their offense is good.
Yep.
And, they've scored 30 plus points, 3 times this season. And, they went toe to toe with Philly last week, and it's like, so this is a team that can score. Now they're going to give up some points, but are you going to be able to get those points? Because, for the most part this season, the Patriots have not. So, that's going to be a big thing. But, like you said, the trade deadline couldn't have come at a better time because Chase Young and Montez Sweat are now gone. They were two excellent run stuffers and they're excellent pass rushers. So
Yep.
I think that's a two-edged sword that's going to hurt that defense even more.
I totally agree. And, again, I'm wondering what this Patriots team needs to do in order to. This should be okay. Let's rewind. This should be a game, like you talked about to start the show, that if you look at it, like even as bad the Patriots have been the last few years, this is a game where I would say the Patriots should win this game at home. They're back home this week. They should be a little frustrated with how they played last week because I think they ran into some similar mistakes. They should be locked in. They should be. This is a game they would traditionally win, even with being bad. That being said, I do think, and I don't think they're there yet. I don't think this is unfair to say. If they continue to keep losing games, I do think that the try hard, like how hard are they really going to try? I don't think that we're there yet. I think that you'd have to lose several more games and kind of get towards closer to the end of the line here. But I am wondering how much pride this team has, Steve. I think Belichick will have them focused. Again, I'm not saying they're giving up or anything like that, but they are human. I wonder, are they frustrated, and is that going to motivate them positively or negatively? Because I think traditionally this is a game they should win, Steve.
Yeah, I believe so. Even if Young and Sweat had played, I still think they should win this game. But that being said, right now, if they lose, I mean, everything we read about last week and heard, the locker room was very quiet in Miami after that game because they put a lot of stock in how they played against Buffalo, and then they did all the wrong things against Miami in all three phases of the game, I thought. Maybe not so much special teams, but offensively and defensively, they just fell right back into that rut that they've been in. And, I think that was a really bad point for them this season after the high of the week before. So I think right now they need to win this game, or I think then people are going to start tuning out.
I agree, Steve. I totally agree with that. Let's get over to our 3 keys to victory and prediction, Steve. I'm going to start with you. Let's start with the 3 keys first. Tell me what the Patriots need to do in order to secure a victory this week.
Yeah, now their 2 best pass rushers are gone.
Mm-hmm.
So this week, Washington has been, I think, 21st against the run. So play action passing, because they should be able to run against this team. It's time to get the running game going, but I think the first key is get play action passing going, because you need to get the passing game involved early in this one, because their secondary is giving up 256 yards per game. I mean, that is an insane amount. And, now that pass rush is going to be missing some people, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to find some guys open. And so play action passing, to me, it's going to be key this week. Number 2 is get the young guys involved. I want to see more Douglas. I want to see Butte. I want to see Thornton. If they fail, then you know what you got. Okay. But at least give them a shot against this team. And I want to see those three guys on the field at the same time. It's time. I mean, you can hang up competing for a playoff spot now because I don't think either one of us think they're going to win 9 in a row, excuse me.
Yeah.
So to win 11 games because it's not going to happen. So, find out what you got, put the young guys out there. At least you have some speed on the field.